Very good. Welcome, everybody, to another bright, sunny day in Florida. I remind everybody to speak up as much as possible because we do have Diehl going on. And first we'll do the roll call. We'll just go around the table to Tim Diehl, Vice Chair, Fire Service Membership Council. And you're next.
We're doing our own roll call?
Yes, we're doing our own roll call.
BJ, hi, member.
Kelly Nicolello, Underwriters Laboratories.
Brian Adams.
Andy King, Franklin, Tennessee Fire Department, representing the IFC Southeastern.
Larry Medina, work for Lord State Fire Marshal's Office, representing IFC Wassom.
Michael McShane, Dover Fire, New Hampshire, representing the local division of the National Association of Veterans.
Ted Black, Utah State Fire Marshal's Office, representing NASA.
Rick Boisberg, Brighton Area Fire, represent the IFC and the Great Lakes.
Art Wassom, our Lake Fire Department, Lake Kansas, goes for ICC.
Wendy Collins, Assistant State Fire Marshal in California, representing NASPA.
Christine Reed, Central County Fire Department, retired, representing ICC.
Mike DeRocher, Vermont State Fire Marshal, representing ICC.
Doug Nelson, North Dakota State Fire Marshal, representing NASPA.
Tom Lund, Boyne, Iowa, representing the IFC Missouri Valley.
Tim Schmitz, ICC Carl's driver.
Call.
Carl Fippinger, ICC, Tim's understudy.
Very good.
Sean's on
We
the
have two online.
Yeah, and Sean,
Morning, Sean Toomey from the injured ward, New Hampshire. Thanks for bailing me out, Tim Diehl.
you're quite
Fall
welcome.
downstairs. That's my advice for the day.
Yep, get well soon. We have a quorum.
Chief O'Brien.
Yeah. Morning, Chief O'Brien.
Morning, everybody. Looks like it's nice and sunny there.
Not where we're at.
We'll get a couple other introductions for guests. Of course, President Tom.
Good morning. You know, the best part about being president of the board is you get to delegate, and so Director Metz is the liaison here. So on behalf of the full board, we are just thrilled to be here. As you guys know, because I always start off this way, whenever we have our annual business meetings and get together, I always start off with fire services. So that's why I'm here, but I'll turn it over to Director Metz.
Thank you, everybody, for being here and traveling out to Florida. It's great to see basically a full committee. I'm sorry that Sean was a little bit under the weather and wasn't able to travel, but this is how we envision the membership councils turning out for these in-person meetings. So I commend you all for being here, and for our guests that are here for co-hearings, and the leadership league for coming here and visiting with the Fire Service Membership Council this morning. You guys are doing great work. There's a lot of hot topics that are out there right now, and your monthly meetings continue to set the standard for what the board's expectation is for the value of membership council. So continue to do good work, and I'm honored to be able to be your liaison. Thank you.
Question?
Oh, Shirley Ellis, and I'm just sitting in till my committee starts. I'm the liaison for the plumbing and mechanical and gas. And so, but always a privilege to be there with this council. So thank you for letting me sit in for just a little while. And pardon my interruption when I leave.
You're fine. Thank you for being here. If the guests want to go around the room and just kind of introduce themselves.
Morning, Darcy Davidson, Rosebud Fire Department and California Fire Protection Officers.
Glenn Tribute, Lake County Fires, outside possible.
I'm Pitch Schneider, Shotgun Fire, Minnesota, just southwest of Minneapolis.
Kevin Fulford, LG Energy Solution for part of the ICC
Good morning, Bruce Gaskin, UL Solutions.
Good morning, Amin Thomas, City of San Antonio.
Shameen Rashid Siwar, National Readiness Concrete Association.
Eric Banks, EW Banks Consulting, representing the North American Modern Building Model.
Very good. Thank you all for attending. We'll move into our agenda, and Chief O'Brien, if you could give us an update.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm going to share a quick slide deck just to keep me on task, but appreciate everybody letting me dial in today. What we're going to talk about is some of the work that the ICC Ad Hoc Committee on Lithium-Ion Batteries has been doing. We've been very busy so far with lots of work groups to try to meet the task of really what's at hand in the charge that was given to us by the board of directors. So I know we've got the president and some of the other board members in the room. So a big thank you to the board for their entrusting staff and in this committee to do the work of the membership to really try to make sure we're preparing some of the best documents in the world to prepare our communities for this rapid transition that's occurring not only in the US, but really across the globe. Big thanks to Christine, Reed, and Carl for their support as staff on this topic because it is becoming a very labor-intensive project just in the sense that we have a lot of people who want to be engaged. And so when we're looking at really where we started with the ad hoc committee, our initial meetings with the committee members, and by the way, the ICC does have a great page set up and you can see all of our committee members and they bring a lot of diverse backgrounds. Not only do we have fire service, we have building officials who are working on some of the world's biggest battery plants. We have plumbing mechanical code officials. We have experts from Underwriters Laboratory, NFPA, and then we've got a lot of our manufacturers as well in the room and at the table. So it's not just a one-sided, it's a very, very diverse group, which brings lots of great opinions and conversation. So really we started with saying, hey, where are the fires occurring and where are the gaps within our codes and standards? And I think many of us are very used to what's in the IFC, what's in the IBC, maybe a reference document or two. And so there's been lots of discussion, not only with where are the fires occurring, but what are our communities seeing in a sense of changing energy environment, both in the homes to the commercial setting. And so, you know, we kind of have drilled it down to saying, look, there's fires occurring in about these 5 major areas. And then how do we take where some of these fires and incidents are happening and start to layer in modern codes and standards? I think it's really important. And I think the committee work groups have really tried to look at this because when we look at these fire areas, this is kind of how we have broken out much of our work groups. We've got a group that's working on commercial energy storage. We have a work group that's working on residential ESS. We have a second or a third group that's working on storage, manufacturer, recycling, and then we have the mobility EV space. And I'm still not sold that those are the be all end all because there's quite a few issues that are crossing over into other spaces that need some additional coordination. But we've really tried to charge our work groups to say, hey, look, when we look at maybe things that are out there, information that's out, where are we at when we start to look at the 2024 fire codes? You know, California and Crystal serves on our work group or on our committee. And obviously California for many, many years has been leading the way, and they did bring forward the 2024 battery provisions in much of their building and fire code. But not many of our communities and states have. So how do we get the feedback to see if those changes that we made in 2024 documents are starting to work? And this is truly a case where we're dealing with a very fast emerging technology. And I will always go back that codes are slow and technology is fast. Now, I think some of the very important stuff for us here is we really have to look at what our forefathers built into our codes and standards to equip our enforcers, our architects, all of our folks involved in the code process, because there are means when we have new technology to utilize our codes and standards to their fullest potential and get code officials, architects, engineers, designers the right tools. And one of the things that we keep seeing coming up is just people don't have access to the 2024 code documents. If you think about a lot of our modern code officials, I think many have adopted like the ICC Premium, or they're using online access. I can't tell you the last time I personally had bought a code book. Everything I'm using is online, but not everybody gets there. And some of our states have some complexities. So one of the issues that keeps coming up from the committee members is it feels like we keep revisiting where our topics are, because people's experiences in the 21, it's in the 18, and in many cases, it's still in the 2015 codes, which are very limited. So we're finding very quickly that getting current codes into folks' hands is becoming something that is a topic, and it will be probably identified as a gap in the report. We're also very interested to see the work that's done by the Fire Code Committee this week. I know many of you are there for the hearings, and so we do know that there's multiple battery provisions coming forward that came both out of the Fire Code Action Committee. I think some of them were crossed over into BCAC, as well as just interested parties. So knowing what comes out this week is in the flavor of the room is probably going to help give us some information. So we've charged our work groups to start to say, hey, look, where are we missing information, and how do we start to build, or what's the right answer? Because our answer for the work group isn't necessarily to provide all of the answers. It's really to say, hey, look, we have these opportunities that our code officials, our architects, engineers, any our end users need. And so some of the stuff that we're really battling is what's truthful and what's not. We know that a lot of work has been done, but there's a lot of bad information as well. The hazards of a lithium-ion battery within a mobility device in a small room are much different than a EV that's in a parking deck. And so how do we get the right information and what's factual through the whole process? Because I think you all know that when we start to talk codes and standards, a lot of times we have opinions that maybe aren't based on facts, and they aren't based on truthful information. So we definitely have some work here that will probably be coming out in the report is what is the best way to share best practices? What is the best way to provide for things that are factual? And I would say that there's no doubt that there's a lot of needs for training for all aspects in all professions utilizing codes and standards specific to the battery provisions, because this is coming to almost every single one of our new homes. This is coming into our commercial buildings, and there's a lot of processes that I think we've got to promote. Chapter 4 of the Fire Code, which is probably one of the most overlooked, has some real gems in there as it relates to batteries in the built environment. And so how do we prepare an end user to understand the training, the planning that needs to take place? And there's no doubt that the need for additional study is going to come out of this report. And it doesn't mean that ICC has to bear the fact of it, but it will help, I think, staff. I think it will help the board and others to start to work with federal resources to say, hey, look, our code enforcement community needs more support in this environment. We need more technical study to help support claims or changes or markets. And that takes money to do a lot of those things. And so how do we take these things, and I skip a slide here or two, but really what's happening is our work groups are in full force. Our whole committee meetings have been relatively short because we're just taking updates and we're trying to allow our work groups to do the work that they need to do. We're going to be drafting here real soon based on our gap analysis. And I've been really encouraged from some of the things that have been coming up. One of the things that we're going to be continually challenged with is, do we have the right voices, the right people in the room? Do we have the right complement of code officials? So it doesn't feel like it's just a fire code side or a building code side, but do we have design professionals that are working through these buildings? Do we have contractors and end users that are showing some of their experience as well? And so we're aiming for that draft report to the board of directors in the fall of 2024. I'm trying to work like mad because I would love to have it to the president for his last board meeting, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we're going to try like mad. But overall, if what I would say is, if people in the room would like to be engaged, we have a long list of interested parties. Go see Miss Christine Reed. She's been doing a wonderful job of keeping us on task and coordinating those, so you can be actively involved and have your voice heard in those multiple work groups. The committee as a whole has a lot of interested parties as well, and so we give a lot of time to that to make sure that we're hearing from our members as best as we can. And as always, you can always reach out to me. That's my cell phone number. You can call or text or grab me this week when you see me later this week. Be happy to talk to you about it, but happy to answer any questions. A lot of work coming. And hopefully somewhere later in the summer, we can actually start reviewing some of the gaps with this group as well.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief O'Brien? Very good. Again, thank you, sir, and look forward to seeing you later.
Chief, thanks for getting up early on Sunday morning to come and join us too.
I know we did have a few more guests, arrive. They just chimed back in. So Director Weiss, Director Applegate, would you like to say anything?
Good morning, HVC. Thanks for being here, and hope you get to stay for several days of the hearings. Take care of yourself, hydrate, eat well, get some sleep. It's a marathon.
Me too. Keep your hands off the mic. Be ready to go. Thank you guys. Thanks for all you.
Senator Bob Sullivan was up and just make sure you eat dinner.
Yes, there you go. All right, moving into any additions or corrections to the agenda? None, we'll continue on. We will defer the approval of our minutes to our next meeting in May. So we'll get work group updates. So Adams, you want to do member engagement?
Yeah. I'll keep it kind of brief here because I think we're gonna have more discussion at the end with the work groups. But member engagement, just been working on obviously the monthly speakers that we have for each of the meetings. So just trying to work on getting a schedule and a good lineup of interested or people with interesting presentations for the fire service. So if you have any suggestions, ideas, presentations you've seen, make sure to share those with us. Our meetings are the third Tuesday of every month. So our next one will be the 16th of April, 2:00 Eastern. I'll have right now.
Any questions? Emerging trends. Desrochers.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Boy, the emerging issue and trends work group, we continue to hold our monthly meetings. Right now, we're tracking approximately 20 issues that we have discussed in our work group. I'm just going to touch on a few of them, just to give you the kind of a taste of what we're doing. We've discussed the issue of vacant buildings, which is an issue across the country impacting the fire service. We've discussed flammable refrigerants. We've done some work on inflatable spray booths. We've had discussions on sleeping pods. We have had discussions on rooftop assembly occupancies. A lot of buildings now are having assembly occupancies put on the roof of their structures. We had discussions going back even a year or two ago regarding lithium-ion batteries. And of course, there's so much national activity there going on now. We have had discussions on robotic storage systems. How does that impact the fire service? That's quite a topic by itself. A lot of information out there on robotic systems, but they're becoming more popular. And the issue we see is means of egress through the rack storage areas. How does that impact sprinkler protection? How do you know the power is shut off? The list just goes on and on about these, and actually the codes were not didn't address a lot of these issues that we were discussing in our work. We've also had some discussion about artificial intelligence. How does that impact building codes, or how the construction industry, all this stuff. We've had discussions about unmanned aerial vehicles. Now you have parades with unmanned aerial vehicles, and you even have some now that discharge fireworks and so forth. So we've been kind of discussing that, and most recently our group entertained this single exit exemption discussion that is obviously going to be brought up here at the hearings. And just as my role in the National Association of State Fire Marshals, we did put together an opposition paper on this single exit in multi-story residential occupancies. We did this so our membership, if they so felt the need to, they could present this opposition paper and legislation. What we're seeing across the country from that perspective is, and everybody here is probably aware of it, but we see a lot of stuff being legislated versus going through the code adoption process. We're concerned about that at NASM, and so we're trying to take an active role on, let's get some of these items into the code development process so that it can be properly vetted. So we did provide that opposition paper in the state of Connecticut. That paper was presented to the Connecticut legislature. They shot down this single exit legislation and turned it back to the state's building commission. So anyways, that document is available. If anybody wants it, they can contact me, but it's on NASM's webpage. We have developed for some time now an Excel spreadsheet that tracks all our emerging issues and trends. It has all the supporting documentation with it. It's got hyperlinks so you can click on them, and it shows all the supporting documents on this stuff. Hopefully, as soon as we can get this onto our fire service membership page, everyone will be able to view it and see where we are and share it amongst the other work groups. We did set up with Kelly's help here a fire service membership council PowerPoint program where it shows all these different emerging issues and trends. We have presented that to the fire service. It has just been recently updated because it's constantly changing. But this program, the PowerPoint program, is a great opportunity to show folks what we're doing here. And in that PowerPoint program, it does include all the other work groups and how we work together, what their goals are, what their missions are, and how we interact with each other. So that has been completely updated. And of course, I take this opportunity to ask anyone if they want to participate in our work group to join us. It's a great conversation. We meet. Our next meeting is April 22nd. at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our last meeting, we had 16 people on our call. And the discussions are excellent. So, again, thank you, and that's my update.
Michael, could you talk a little bit about, because you were saying that you have a lot of topics that your work group is discussing. Are there any 1 or 2 or 3 topics that have really grown some traction that you guys are working a little bit more on and getting it ready to kind of go out to other work groups? Or is that still in the evaluation stage of all of the topics? Or if you could drill down a little bit more, kind of what you feel some of the hot topics are and how maybe the rest of us could help.
Yeah. Good question. We've done some inflatable sprinkles was actually our first one that we ran with. There was quite a bit of public awareness, and actually some cold work that was done on that. And Kelly, you can feel free to chime in here too, because you have expertise in this area too. But we did some stuff with the flammable refrigerants. That was quite a topic there for a period of time. The vacant building one is kind of, I think of that as being high up there on the, what can we do to protect and educate the fire service on the hazards that are associated with our vacant buildings. And you have a lot of cities, for example, I think Baltimore and Maryland has 30,000 registered vacant buildings. And how do you deal with, you have fires in these buildings. If you're not on the same responding ship, you may not even know that buildings had 2 other previous fires. So there's all kinds of, how do you deal with these? It's costly. How do you tear these buildings down? Who takes ownership of them? Can you have a registration program in place? Well, there's been a lot of discussion about these. I don't know if I'm directly answering your questions, but the battery was a big issue too, and that was a great presentation. So I don't know, Kelly, you want to add?
So what we do is when we bring these items together, we may hear it from industry, we may hear it from the fire service, we may manufacturers, and so we take them and we just start brainstorming on it. The biggest question we ask is, what is the subject, and then where does it need to go? Is it a societal issue? Is it a code issue? Is it a fire service issue? What is it? Does it have an education component to it? Is it purely a code issue? And we may have that discussion and we kind of pigeonhole where we think it needs to go as a group. We don't deal with it necessarily directly ourselves because we don't have that kind of impact. But it's our opportunity to take what we hear in the field, bring it into our group, and then from there, maybe there's some code provisions and we can reach out to certain people and say, okay, here's some code provisions. The ad hoc committee on battery storage is a result of us. We're not taking credit for this, but being a participant and bringing this forward as an issue for ICC. And some of the other
Kelly,
items.
I'd interrupt for a quick moment if I could and tell you that this group is very much responsible for having that issue placed in front of the ICC board and having the board take action on that to create this ad hoc committee, staff it the way that it was. So I just wanted to make sure
I appreciate that.
This group knew that.
So that's just an example of one of the items, and where does it go? And we just kind of track it along and see what kind of progress it's making. And as new items come in, we add those to our list. So it's always ever evolving. And we've got no shortage of subjects. But an example, going back to the inflatable sprinklers, that was a thing. But we knew we had no real control over it. So there was a provision within the code that prohibited it. And then we went back and there was changes made in NFPA 33, which now allowed it to come forward because now there was a standard, now there was instruction, and now it could be added into the code body. And within certain provisions, it could be used with a different title and different use. So that's an example of an outcome based on a subject that we heard years ago and started seeing advertised out in the world, but had no direct impact or source or provision within the codes. So that's kind of where we're at and what we do as a group.
Keep on.
If I could add to the conversation, I'm not able to attend your meetings every month, but when I am there, the topics y'all discuss are certainly high level. And not to take away from what Kelly was saying, but I think if you could ever take a measure, and I don't know how you would ever do this, but when you all started talking about the single exit stairwells, I don't know where that conversation, you know, we're all connected, but I don't know where that conversation actually originated, but we were getting position papers from the IAFC within 2 months. It was a hot button topic, but I certainly believe the first time I heard that topic come up was in the emerging issues group.
So just to give some background and context to that. So the gentleman to my left and all the other staff members that we have in the field in the government relations department started to hear that particular topic arise in their states that they're responsible for. As that came up, Tim is one of our regional directors. So we have our GR staff, and then we have a couple of Steve Jones and Tim Schmitz, our regional directors, and they start to bring that information up. It found its way to me. Hey, this is an issue. We're hearing about it in multiple places. So immediately on our Tuesday calls that we do with FSMC leadership, that was brought up. Tim was able to present it. I was able to present it. And then very easily, based on the great relationships that we have with the Fire and Life Safety section at the IAFC, with our partners at NASFM, and with our partners at the International Association of Firefighters, literally made a couple of calls, sent a couple of emails, and within literally hours, NASFM had their position paper. IAFC was right behind them. Chief Rogers came on and briefed this issue on behalf of the IAFC on our last group call last month. So I think that's, you know, a perfect way to be able to demonstrate the way the system should work. But it's all based on the relationships and the fact that we all know each other to be able to pay. And the ICC made a very deliberate decision. I worked very closely with our board liaison, Randy Metz. You know, immediately when this came up, bounced it off of him and said, hey, look, are we going to take a position on this? You know, the codes are clear. And he said, I think that's, you know, essentially to paraphrase, that's our answer. The codes are clear. We need to be where we are and maintain, and we'll let the other organizations take their positions. And that's exactly what happened. So we're there. It's certainly not over yet. We continue to see this issue. So we'll keep you up to date on it, but that's how it worked. And that's exactly the way that it should work.
Compliments to that.
It's a great show of how the system works and how we communicate well. Any other comments or questions for?
I just have one other comment, is it's nice to be able to, when we hear the report outs, to be able to know that you're not alone. Right, so, and everybody, every corner has, you know, some people coming up with some different ideas. So, in regards to vacant buildings, you know, we've got a group that is really looking to turn all their fees into ours. And just think that they can build it out and move in. So, there are a lot of items. I don't know if every state is like that, but my state seems to really have lots of contacts. Everybody knows the governor, right? And they seem to go the legislative turn more frequently than they try to go to the, you know, if the code says no, right? Mom says no, then they go to dad and try to do that workaround. So having early indication, early warning system, if you will, to look at these is quite beneficial.
Very good. Jim?
If I may, one of the other items to also consider, we do a lot of work through the fire code. And I think with this single stair issue, it's one of those issues that if we had not been looking outside of the fire code proposals this time, we wouldn't have known that there is two major code proposals in the building code side So I really want everybody to understand that all of our different codes, whether that's plumbing, mechanical, building, there are things in those code proposals that affect fire department, affects the ongoing maintenance of the buildings that we inherit for annual inspection programs. So I want to ensure that everybody is continuing to look beyond just what is in the monologue for fire code change proposals and dig deeper into how does what's going on in egress or IBC fire safety affect what we end up doing for the lifetime of that building. A lot of times we see things from a different perspective because we see the building long-term and forever. And some of our colleagues may be there and involved in the construction of it, and then they walk away. They never get to see the ongoing issues that we inherit as we go through and continue to ensure that those buildings are safe for the next 40, 50 years. So I think that the single stair issue is one that really elevated within the fire service when we actually said, hey, we don't necessarily support this. We don't believe this is a great idea. And it's not permitted by code. And then, as soon as the monograph came out, we saw that there were now code change proposals. And that was obviously, now we have to actually mobilize to determine where does the fire service sit on this nationally, because if it does get into model code eventually, then they'll stop trying to legislate things at the state level there. So, this is really an example of how involved does this group want to be in trying to use all of their resources and their contacts to get where we want to be in the end. And because of the various different groups that fire service is involved in, and you guys are unique because you're the only membership council that has an MOU with other organizations. You get to tap into different resources much more readily because they're already sitting here at the table than some of our other membership councils that are all ICC specific on how those people got at that table. So continue to use that as a resource and look for those opportunities on any of these issues that come forward.
Well said. Director Leeson?
The emerging issues kind of made me think about the Innovation in Code Administration Award, and, which led me to think, are you guys also putting out kind of a call out saying, how are people dealing with this? Do you have something you think is working, like the vacant buildings? Vacant buildings are everywhere. So does anyone have a program that they think is robust and is working that, selfishly as the chair of the awards committee, could be submitted for an award, but also just really to share, and I know MGC looks at things like this too, but they're really looking at bigger jurisdictions, and you all can look at any size jurisdiction, and what might work for a large jurisdiction could be adapted for a smaller jurisdiction and vice versa. Just lessons learned. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to do kind of a call out to see who thinks they're doing this well and ask them to participate in your meetings.
That's a good point, and we do, a lot of these topics are generated from, to be honest here, the state fire marshal's office, right? It's a real easy network to hit every state and ping every state. So we have surveyed our membership with emerging issues and trends. So that's a good, hitting the state fire marshals is pretty good. I work with Tim now on the building officials, like, I don't know what you want to call it.
It's a group of statewide code officials. So we found we didn't have that organization in place. We had all these different types of groups, but we had no single forum for code officials that run states, that have a statewide code. So this thing was formed almost 2 years ago now. So
Right.
Michael's the new chair this year, and we use it as a sounding board. Have you dealt with X? And it goes out there and it turns into this, almost this forum channel, and single stair was classic. It came, we had an architect in the state of Ohio in the state office said, hey, have you guys heard of this? And she sent it to me. And so I sent it out to the statewide group, because I sent it to the statewide group. Boom.
I mean, it came flooding in and then it moved over to the fire side and it just kept growing. So we have some good forum channels out there. Have you ever dealt with X and how did you handle it?
And to a point to Director Reese's, that innovation award, those programs, they do come out of, the emerging trends. And I think we need to do a better job of tapping into those and finding those little programs so that we can disperse those a little bit better. So I appreciate that and look forward to getting that back on track.
Because I mean, a lot of it, what you guys are looking for, we get, and we're always stuck in the spot of where no. So a nice program of something that's working is usually we're like, no, that's awful, don't do that, so we find all the no programs. So we're trying to find a good working program that would fit your model. Single stairs, no.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair? Not a question, but a comment. Mike, as you were going over the list of emerging issues and trends, something was going through my mind. And then when Chief Collins said, nice to know you're not alone. One of the things that I thought was, I wish all of our membership clubs had this very topic. Because, so often there are things that are just bugging us all back at home, in the back of our heads. And if we all knew that these are emerging trends and issues that we're all seeing, and there may be solutions already in place, it helps make us all better and more effective at what we do. And to see that here in this room is fantastic. I wish that all of the membership councils had that exact topic. And what really struck me is 2 weeks ago, I was in Paris at the UN Global Forum, and they kept stressing one thing that hopefully will help the issue worldwide. And we've all heard the saying before, for most of us, but to put it into context, it fits right into what you're saying. And it's, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And as we identify these emerging issues and trends, as a fire service, my God, we can do so much, whether it's single stair, whether it's lithium ion battery storage, all the issues. But as you were going through that list, I was thinking, boy, am I glad I'm not a fire marshal anymore, because I've had to be having to deal with all of that stuff. And working together with our other membership council, Kim used to work with the building membership council quite a bit. I think that as we extend that even further and work together, we can solve these things so much faster. But I would really encourage, as you were going over that list, looking at that, because I think it makes ICC better. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a topic for the new steering committee. So, and that is one of the ideas that I've put out there and trying to work with the other councils on. Because it is, that group, since its inception, has just brought so many good topics and items to the table that, we're all dealing with. So.
Since you brought up your committee, I heard this is just for future reference. So there's an underlying underbelly gap here with some of the emerging issues. And that is, if you take the stairway issue, you take taking the sprinklers out of the code issue, take the double door lock issue, and they all have something in common. They all went around the codes and they all went to the Legislative Reform Act first to get out there. And there's a distinct disadvantage between EHJs having access to be able to testify at legislators for various political pressures that get put upon them or limitations versus a person who's making contributions and having a person sponsor a particular bill and it gets through there, and we're on the opposite side responding defensively to those and often hamstrung in those attempts when we do so. And there's not a building official that doesn't deal with that. There's not a fire official that doesn't deal with that. And there is no strategic application on how we how do you deal with them? Everybody's learning on their own based on their own circumstances, but it's a cross issue, you know? So maybe that's a bigger issue you guys can look at and see, okay, if you run into this, here's kind of like the A plan. That I don't guarantee it's gonna work, but maybe that's something that you guys can see and maybe put out an idea. You know, I'm kind of struggling at the minute to say, you know, what the outcome should be, because I don't know, but, you know, better coordination in some way. So that we could be more successful at those either legislative issues on the state level, or even the local issues with our individual cities. So I just throw that out there for discussion.
No, I agree. All right, moving on. I'll turn right to you, Kelly, for your public awareness.
Okay. One point I'll make out about our committees. We're all interactive one to another. One feeds the other. So stuff that comes out of emerging issues, oftentimes the next question is, well, who needs to know about this? And sometimes those issues are kind of geared toward the fire service. Sometimes those items are geared towards the general public. And so in our public awareness arena, we develop work assist documents that can help people put this information out within a certain format that ICC can post to their website and things like that. So currently we're working on the big issue right now is getting our tweets done for building safety week. And those are actively being worked on. And then we're also working on a kind of a general article to go out to educate folks about A2Ls. Because A2Ls, the whole issue is now coming back to maybe the consumer who doesn't fully understand the HVAC issues and how it's gonna affect them in the future. You know, working from the current systems that we've got to the heat pumps that are coming out, to the fire service. Are they familiar with the hazards of a A2L versus an A3 refrigerant? They're all coming back out. The days of the non-flammable refrigerants are gone. And what we've got left are slightly flammable and flammable refrigerants. So what happens when you put one of those in a commercial kitchen? You got refrigeration in there and we've got open flame. So maybe there's some separation issues that need to be dealt with. And that is within the codes themselves. That's being worked as we speak. But there's some general population issues that we want to put out there. So those are the ones that we're working on. And then in light of that, we talked about in our last emerging issues meeting, some things that were coming up and talking about things like aging in place and how does that relate to the fire service when it comes to rescue, comes to inspection, comes to any number of issues that are medically driven. So again, the single exit is an issue. We talked about maybe putting that together as an article. But we'll wait to see what happens in the codes before we do anything with that. But that's something that's got to be on our list. And then what the idea is to put these out on our website, and at the same time being able to push these out through email blasts, through NASFM, through iChiefs, through international firefighters, and let them use them as tools available for their own use on a local basis. And so that's kind of where we're at. And so our next meeting is the 11th of this month, which probably isn't going to be happening. But with that being said, the next one scheduled after that is May 2nd. And we invite anybody who wants to be a part of that. If you'd like to write, if you'd like to just throw ideas out there, see what sticks on the wall, whatever the case is. It's all interactive and so we welcome anybody's participation today.
Great. Any comments, questions?
Question. Is the ICC government affairs engaged with the law?
Yeah.
So I think the government affairs folks should have been taught. Any one of them was actually their role in the legislative that they were getting for filing. Given the legislative affairs group.
Well, unfortunately, Carl was just walked out the door.
Yeah, just walk out.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's part of that. And if you had heard his explanation earlier, that's kind of sort of what happens. It's a kind of a two-way flow. GR does their magic where they need to do where they have their influence, but they also bring it to us, which now allows it to filter down into the working mass. So it's a two-way flow and it does work.
And I'm still here.
Yeah.
Director Macy had her hand up.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Please.
I just want to say they have been really involved and I have actually been super impressed with the GR reps coordinating with each other even because it's an issue that's national. So they're kind of sharing information on what they're hearing, who are the players, what are their talking points, and doing their best to share that with the areas that they cover. So they have been, but to date, I think they've been mostly speaking with the chapter leaders in each of those different areas. So if you haven't talked with them directly, connect with your chapter leader.
Chief Wassom, training, education.
Thanks, Tim, and good morning, everybody. Not a ton of an update, but I might kind of start a little bit of a discussion, but I'll start with an apology. Our working group hasn't met in a couple of months. I might have underestimated the commitments of being on both FCAC and the Code Development Committee, so, but we're finally here at the hearing, so we'll get past that, but, our group does intend to meet, starting again in May, so our next meeting will be May 6th at 2 p.m. Central Time. We meet on the first Monday of every month, so. But a few things we did have going, we did make a run at having a webinar here about a month ago. Some things fell through with scheduling on that, but we do intend to keep moving that forward. That was on carbon monoxide safety, and Kelly was helping with that. So still to come on that. If anybody's got experience and a desire, I could use some help getting that put forward. The original plan was kind of going into the Learn Live system, which is a good system, but I'm not sure it's the right place for what we're trying to do with that particular webinar. So I want to talk to Carl and Tim and some other folks about how we can keep that moving forward, but maybe on its own platform and something we put together and we get the publicity and things out for that. So if that's something you want to help with, I'd welcome that help. And I'm not greatly experienced at putting on webinars. So if someone is, I could use help getting that going. So we do have some topics for other webinars as we move forward. Some of those probably make sense in Learn Live, and we're going to keep doing that. If you're not familiar with Learn Live, it's a weekly, just a weekly education topic that the ICC does. It's a platform they've got going. So, every week, if you need CEUs, you can get in there and learn about a topic. So a good platform. We've got some ideas for that, whether it be like a fire inspection series, training classes on fire inspection or plan review, something like that. But I would welcome ideas for that. And really the discussion I wanted to maybe have quickly is, what are some other ideas that this group thinks training and education can put forward? The first one I'm going to mention is I really like what we did a couple of years ago with the inflatable spray booths. And I think that's an opportunity to get our working group back, developing things like that. It really involved all of the working groups. And I think we put out a great product. So I'd like to see us do that again and maybe more frequently. But are there comments from the group that's here on what we can do? Are webinars the right idea, or what are some thoughts?
I guess I'll just say, I know that because I sit in on your meetings and I know there's a challenge with organizing or proposing in-person presentations with topic, with timeline, with deadline for submission. So is an in-person opportunity, is that harder or easier? Is it more effective to getting out to greater audiences? You know, it's the challenge is there to get people into one place. So, I mean, I think webinars are good. Because you can do it live, and then if it's recorded, then people can go back later and see it, and then they can put it on repeat. We can put it, you know, through the ICC website, you know, in various locations if we could. So, you know, I know that some of it is a heavier lift to propose topics for in-person, but I still think that they're beneficial to get out. I'm sorry, I had to leave the room for a second, but did you go through kind of the different events or conferences that we have put out for the in-person? You did?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay, because that may help the group to figure out, okay, is that the right venue, or maybe there's something else that we're not thinking about, and I know that there's some criteria that it's more difficult to get accepted based on the topic than others, so maybe you could delve a little bit.
Sure. So the biggest one we do every year is support the ABM. You know, we try to provide multiple topics to the Code Council for classes at the ABM. I know we've submitted at least a couple from this group, you know, the group as a whole, not just training and education. So we've had classes in the Fire Sprinkler Association conference in the past. Michael always presents, or frequently presents at different groups, including the State Fire Marshal's group. Those have really been where we've landed. We've not really gotten into like the Vision 2020 risk reduction or IAFC's risk reduction conference. I think there could be a possibility there. Those tend to be kind of public education program focused. There's lots of opportunities. We're always getting calls for proposals for classes. I guess what we don't get frequently is responses to those and ideas. So right now, that's actually where we're falling short. I think there's a lot of things we do frequently, like Michael's class, and that's great. I think we should continue keeping that updated and keep giving that in different environments. But we run short on ideas for some of the other conferences.
Yeah, so I see a lot of activity online in various social media locations from people that are looking for classes that will assist them in preparing to sit for the IFC fire inspector exam. I know that there are various different primers and tutorials for some of the other certifications, but I don't believe that we have any that have been prepared for passing Fire Inspector 1, Fire Inspector 2. Maybe something that you guys can look at, certification prep type discussion, because it seems to be a very common theme that I've seen over the years that I know ICC hasn't been able to put anything together specifically, but it may be something for your group to try to target on what that would look like, and is that something that is in your space?
I appreciate that. We have talked about that. That's kind of what the inspector series we've talked about would be, and breaking what could be a much larger class up into 60 to 90-minute sessions, and you come to the sessions as you're preparing for that. But I agree with you. There's not a lot of places you can go to learn how to be a fire inspector. We've got our stuff on the IFSTA side of things, more the fire service side and those pro board certifications, but I agree it's lacking on the Code Council side for the fire certification.
It's difficult because some states have a very robust state fire training division and state certification process, whereas other states in our country have nothing, and they rely solely on organizations like ICC and FPA for providing any type of certification. So I think while some states may look at it and say, yeah, it's not really a big issue for us, it is a big issue for some of our smaller, more rural states.
Director?
Thank you. One of the things I would want you to hopefully consider is that there's kind of a trend, kind of staying on topic of chapters, especially regional chapters. Region 2 will do it, well, not every month, but maybe every other month, or 3 or 4 times a year. They'll just do a 1-hour CEU event using the same platform that their meetings are on. And that's also a great way to kind of get the fire and building side working together. So we've had local in Southern Oregon, one of our great fire instructors, do some NFPA 13 training, just a more brief one over an hour, or a class on building relationships between building and fire. There's still a lot of areas of the country where they just don't play in the sandbox very well together. And it's so important that they do. So there may be an opportunity to really utilize the 60-minute, 90-minute classes there. And it really helps the procrastinators out there. We need 1 more hour or 2 hours.
Thank you, Eric. That's a good idea. So maybe I'll work on my region 4.
A big good platform.
Yeah.
Easy, right out of the gate.
Any other thoughts? It's all good stuff and things I think it'd be good for us to work on. So I know we're going to talk more about the working groups later, and like some of the others have said, we could always use more folks, more help and information coming to ours. So Michael's got some great meetings. Every once in a while, we'll have a good large meeting. Other times they're pretty small groups. We have good little talks, but it's pretty small groups.
I'd like to go back to what we've been talking about in these presentations. Let's ask a more basic question. What is the role of the Fire Service Membership Governance Committee for education of the fire service? Or for ICC? I mean, ICC puts on classes through its different groups and stuff like that, and they have a role to play there. How deep is our role in that? Do we have the responsibility for conducting classes for ICC certification? Or is our responsibility is to get information available to the fire service about various subjects that may be code related, sometimes not. Maybe it's not in the code yet, those types of things. So maybe if we just kind of take what you guys do as a group and have a little broader conversation as to where's my lane? What is my lane? Because right now I see no lane. I see us here, 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 and here. And in the process, it creates a lack of focus and maybe a little bit of a lack of direction, but that also provides more opportunity. So we've got to balance that, I think, a little bit. And for us, it's easy to shotgun blast stuff out because we don't have any limitations for that. But when you're using resources and doing classes in specific areas, you know, how do you want to be able to present that? You know, is it a shotgun blast in one location? Is it supposed to be nationwide? You know, it's wide open. But as a membership committee, you know, is that really what we need to be doing? Do we have the resources to even do that? Or are we purely just working off of voluntary help in the process of making it happen, which is what the case has been. But if we want a deeper look into things, I think you need to go back and ask the question, what is our lane? And are we in the right lane to start with?
Good thought. You know, I agree with you. It's a pretty wide open road of knowing which direction we should be going or which direction folks want us to go. It's been a little undefined, so we could use more. You know, we need to probably narrow the focus because of the resources we have. So it's a good comment.
Any other comments, questions? As you see, we have a lot going on. So, you know, as always, I encourage all the guests to, you know, if you see a topic, if you have any interest, to please jump on to one of these committee meetings. You're more than welcome, and we wish the participation, and it's a great way to get started. So once again, I appreciate all your efforts and the information that's here. We'll move into our reports of officers and liaisons. Director Metz.
Thank you very much, Tim. To Kelly's point, when he talked about where our lane is, I'll say even at ICC at the upper level, we've been having a lot of discussions on what does training and education look like for the organization as a whole. And we've been doing a deep dive into where we want to be and how we're going to get there. So I think having groups like the Training and Education here at the Membership Council assisting ICC staff that are working specifically in training and education to help identify those areas is extremely helpful to Matt Wynn's group to know where they need to go, because they may not necessarily know everything that is important for this group. And having other people come alongside them and help is only going to make ICC stronger within ICC staff working in those areas specifically. So I would keep doing what you're doing and asking the question and take advantage of the fact that there is no lane right now to keep you in a box. So on behalf of the ICC board, we've been very active over the last couple months. A lot of you have seen information came out. One of our major topics that we had to deal with was the appeals that were filed for the International Energy and Conservation Code. A lot of you may look at it and say, hey, fire doesn't really deal with that. I wanted everybody to focus more on the process because the process on the appeals is consistent. Whether somebody decided I want to bring forward an appeal for something that happens in the fire code process, what you just saw and the information that we pushed out was the same type of process that would be consistent for appeals for any code changes that get brought forward. And ultimately, that rises up to the board level to make final decisions on the process that occurs from the committee level up to an appeals hearing process, and then finally up to the board. And if you have any questions on that, you can see any one of us that were involved, but that took up a lot of our time in the first quarter of this year to dispense of that ongoing process there. We're happy that we can now move forward. We've closed the 2024 code completely, and we are moving on with the beginning of code hearings today into the 2027 code process. You guys all know that this is the first code hearing of our new reimagined code hearing process with 2 committee action hearings, and public comment hearings won't occur until 2026. That is a new process for us, and a lot of that is in response to information that came from a lot of you through our long-term code development committee that really looked at what has worked and what hasn't worked in previous code cycles, and what do we need to do in order to get this right and get the best code product at the end of the process. So I hope you all will be able to, if you're not going to stay around, you'll be able to go back to your home jurisdictions and follow along online. There's no voting at all now. There won't be any voting at all in the fall unless you're on the committee. This is all testimony. And I think that's the most important part when we get to the point on how we're going to vote in the final action hearings, is being involved in hearing both sides of the testimony for what's going to start this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Building Safety Month is coming quickly. It is a 5-week month this year. This group has always been very active in pushing out. I think Christine started this years ago with daily tweets that were coming out for the entire month of Building Safety Month out of the fire service. And it's great to see that continues, that the fire service takes an active role. If you have the opportunity to encourage your home jurisdictions in your state to get involved in the promotion of Building Safety Month, I know the fire service has Fire Prevention Week, and that's kind of our focus on getting up in front of city council and proclamations and everything. I really would stress, take advantage of the opportunity with Building Safety Month as well if your local building official isn't doing the same type of promoting what they do in their role in building safety, encourage them. Make it a joint venture for fire and building to come together to do a proclamation at the local level, to really put a lot of emphasis on the code official's role in ensuring a safe community. A lot of different opportunities there that I wouldn't sit back and say, hey, this is up to the building official. Sometimes they need a little bit of prodding. Fire is very good at the PR side of what we do. Building doesn't necessarily get to do near as much as the fire service does in, and we're still learning. The cops have been doing this forever, and they've done a very good job of that. And I think fire services is coming alongside my own jurisdiction. We're in the process of actually taking what used to be our police department Twitter feed and changing it into a public safety Twitter feed so that we can maximize both fire and law together on those issues that are directly affecting the safety of our local communities there. So take advantage of what Building Safety Month could mean for your local jurisdiction. The other thing that we're focusing heavily on from the board is our search for a new CEO. For those of you that have had an opportunity to work with and meet Dominic Sims during his tenure here, he has decided now is the time for him to step away and retire. And this is a huge undertaking for finding and selecting the right leader for the organization as a whole, moving forward to fill some very large shoes of where Dominic has taken ICC with the direction of the board over the last decade plus that he's been in charge. So we will be focusing probably a lot of our time throughout the summer on finding that right person. And hopefully later this year, we will have identified that person to be able to bring an announcement to you all. So I get a lot of questions, what's happening? That's what's happening. Long Beach is coming. Dominic has charged Stuart and I directly with getting 3,000 people to the Long Beach code hearings, since we are in California and Stuart and I are the two board directors that represent California. That is a huge number. That's a big number. When you at first had 3,000, Stuart's mind just about blew right here. So we think that we definitely can get close. We're going to be relying on Chief Collins and State Farm Marshal's office and Calvo to get all of our California people there that we can. But, not only is this our 30th anniversary of the formation of ICC and the signing of the documents that really created the organization, but it's a huge celebration. It'll be Dominic Sims' last ABM that he'll be overseeing as our CEO. For those of you that don't know, President Tom was elected first to the board in Long Beach back in 2015. So it's kind of a full circle of him being able to preside over an ABM in the same city where he was first elected. But I really hope that the fire service is able to have great representation this year. The fact that Group 8 code hearings include fire code, I hope a lot of you will be able to come out and attend the ABM and then stay for code hearings afterwards. But we are continuing to work towards having a strong organization for you all, and the fire service plays a major role in that. And I'm honored to be one of the few fire officials that are on this board. Actually, you've got the three current ones that have been fire officials in the room right now that are on our board currently. And I won't say that it's an underserved, but it may be a little underrepresented sometimes on the board. And I think it's important that we continue to look and find those next leaders that are potential director candidates out of the fire service, no matter where they come from in the country, and give them those opportunities in order to become a known commodity. And if they so choose to seek election in the future, that they've been prepared to do so. Chief Rogers is in the room right here, and I just wanted to give a personal thank, a personal thanks. Chief Rogers serves as the chair of IAFC's Fire and Life Safety Section. We've talked a lot today about us coordinating some of our efforts with them, and Chief Rogers has been very open, and we thank you for your continued support of our organization. And we want to understand that the fire service does an extremely good job of using our resources outside of ICC. And that's why we're successful, because we've always done that, whether that comes from our embedded roots in utilizing master mutual aid. We understand the importance of our neighbors, and that continues with some of our other fire service organizations. You know, Bob Sullivan out of NFPA, they are definitely a partner in this with us. We reference, you know, almost 100 standards now in our codes that are NFPA standards. So we very much appreciate the ongoing relationship that we have with our other fire service partners here. With that, I'm going to turn it over to President Collins and see if there's anything else that he wants to highlight on behalf of the board, and Director Weesey after that.
First off, forgive me for remaining seated. I am already worn out. I've been on my feet talking the whole time. This is why it's wonderful to be present. You can delegate people like Director Metz, who always does such a great job. He actually touched upon virtually everything that I was going to say, but I would like to focus on one of the last things that he said. And that has to do with encouraging more people from the fire services to consider service on the board of directors. I will actually go so far as to say that the FSMC actually has been pretty spoiled, because I remember back when I was the liaison, Director VC, Director Metz, this council has always had really good attention from the board, and I hope that always continues. As Director Metz said, out of the 18 directors, the 3 of us that are here right now are the only 3 who have ever worn a uniform and a badge. And while back when Dwayne Garris was president, his theme was many voices, one purpose. And he said that it is very important that we all remember that we're not building officials, not fire officials, we're all code officials. And that is true to this day. But it is still so important that we actually have dedicated fire representation on our board of directors, because while we will continue to share the mission of having a common voice of all being code officials, we do bring a slightly different perspective to the board, and we can get other things done that might actually get missed. And just to give you an idea, earlier this year, I was, on behalf of ICC, I was in New Zealand and Australia for a while, working with Standards Australia on some MOU issues and doing some other things. And while I was there, I threw out a question, and folks scrambled, and I was able to have a 1-hour-long discussion with one of the lead fire officials in Australia that deals with, their analogous issue with buoy centers. They just refer to them as bushfires. And it was such an awesome exchange, how I could see how Australia, and I know that we all interact with Australia and we share notes and so forth, but to interact individually and see what their perspective is on personal shelter standards, their concept of leave early, stay and defend, but we're not going to come and rescue you. And, I'm harking back to everything that we all live. For those of us that have these standards, we have our voluntary, our mandatory evacuations, and some of it, people don't heed the warnings. And next thing you know, we're rescuing them, or they expect us to rescue them. And it's just really good for all of us to be able to have that perspective on the board of directors, because while I will assure you, the ICC board will always keep in mind all building and fire safety standards that affect our built environments. Having continuous representation on the board is always going to be a good thing for the fire service. I don't know what Director Metz and Director Weesey's plans are for the future, but I was in recent times, I was very, very glad when Wayne Gare stepped up and eventually was president of this board's organization. And it took almost as much arm twisting to get me to run for the executive committee, and now president, as in took arm twisting to even serve on the boards in the first place. But I look back and I think if so many people had to twist my arm to first come to serve on the board, we should be twisting people's arms as well. I'm looking over at you, Wendy, and Christine, yeah, just in California, remember, we get to have 2 directors from each state. I'm gonna be gone pretty soon. And if we don't do something, we will be down to having 2 members on the board that have worn a uniform and a badge. And once again, that's not a bad thing. Everybody looks at everything, but there's room on the board for more than just reality.
Just in an effort to get to 3,000, I recognize that Minnesota has our October break right leading up to the conference. So, you know, Palm Beach makes a great family trip. Want to bring the whole family, send the rest of them home, come Sunday, and you stay for the rest of the conference. So, any way to get up to that 3,000 number. Pulling rabbits out of our hats.
And Director Applegate also, anything you'd like to share with?
Yeah, they covered so much stuff and most of the important stuff. I just want to let you know, I spent 7 years as fire marshal in the oldest city west of the Rockies, founded in 1811. So I learned a lot during that time, and one of the things I learned was we really needed a fire marshal who came from that industry. So sometimes they will task an employee who's a road official or someone else to take over when a chief leaves, and that's what happened to me. So it took me a couple of years to kind of get my comfort zone, the secondary role. The other thing I would like to make you aware of is that there's a chapter forming across the continental US so far from our tribal nations and our original people, and they all have different names, and they call themselves different titles, but they've gained a lot of momentum. They've almost developed their bylaws, and they're going to be submitting for their chapter approval probably in the next month or 2. And so I encourage you, if you know tribal members across the country, or anyone in the world for that matter, that may want to get involved with that chapter, please reach out to me or to your GR rep, and they'll get help with a break off and get in touch.
I just want to point out that you don't actually have to be a tribal member. It's refresh me my memory on the name of Native building official, code officials, right?
Yeah. Code officials.
So roughly 75% of Native Americans live in cities, not on reservations. So I point that out to say you don't have to, the purpose isn't just for those who live on reservations. There are many folks who have Native connections and really will identify with this group of code officials. And I mean, it's just like all of our other chapters, share resources and network and find solutions to things that you're seeing out there.
And David Jackson is here for this event, and he's one of the people that has really kind of spearheaded the whole move towards forming this chapter and getting more education and more trained code officials within the tribal nations. And so if you see him, you can definitely reach out to him directly, because he is always talking about it.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Moving, Chairman Toomey, are you still on the line? Would you like to say something?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Apologies again for not being able to attend in person. We were pushing hard to get everyone, and I had to be one of the ones down. But Vice Chair Diehl, thank you for stepping up. It was a mean birthday present, I think, to get you to have to take over for the meeting, but happy birthday. Hey, I'm thrilled to the conversation that's ongoing through the meeting so far. This is exactly what we've been talking about. We're hoping for this in-person meeting. I think it shows the value of this governing committee, which we were looking for. We're doing some great work. I think if we can continue to help bolster some of the numbers on the work group meetings, that would be great. I think if everyone get to earning issues and trends numbers, having 15 to 20 people on some of these meetings, that would be wonderful. But I think the interaction between the work groups is very positive, and it's clear that everyone is seeing the work that we're doing beyond our group. Where we've been getting 60 to 70 even on our virtual calls, paying attention to what we're doing. So let's keep that going, and I look forward to seeing you guys virtually in May, but hopefully the Long Beach be great. So thank you again. I won't ramble since I'm not there, but good conversation going and a good work that we've been able to do. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, stay safe and get well is what I'll tell you. So moving into my report, I'm really going to defer my report down to the next line item. I don't think we have any other liaisons from the other membership councils in the room right now. Of course, they're all holding their own. So I'll just give the update from the membership steering committee. As most of you heard or were able to see, we do have a big lift that is coming out. I say a big lift, but it is a topic that we need to take care of, which is basically creating those policies and procedures that we are now governed with due to the new update of CP9. And it all comes under 3.25, which each membership council is authorized to establish rules, procedures, and objectives reflecting the unique nature of the respective councils, operations, and areas of focus. So, I take that what this group is going to be tasked with is coming up with those items that were originally in our charters that kind of oversee our rules and regulations and bring them back to a format. So I know I've talked to a few, I've kind of talked with, Doug Nelson to kind of lead that effort. Doug has been gracious enough to take that. So I'm going to ask him, he's going to be reaching out for about 2 or 3 other members to come together to get that document put in place. We have copies of the original charter. We have copies of CP9. So hopefully we'll be able to take a lot of that information and transfer it over. That becomes very important due to our MOUs that we have with our organizations. So once again, it's a short time frame. I would hope that in the next couple of weeks and at our next meeting, we'll have those documents at least to review and be able to submit to the other steering council meeting later in the month of May. That is primarily my only other report as far as liaisons and councils. We'll move into ongoing business, which you see on here is, of course, CFSI, the symposium and dinner. And several of us are going to be there. Here again, April 29th and 30th down in Washington, D.C. It's still being formulated as far as that goes. I know there's a list of people, and I look forward to seeing everybody at that table also. A lot of good information, a lot of networking goes on down there also with our partners. Anybody else has any other ongoing business? We'll move into new business. And as you can see there, it's the membership council. This comes from, Mr. Desrochers' work group. This is part of the presentation that he has started. Christine has kind of stepped up and prepared some slides, so we just kind of want to go over those, but I'll turn it over to Christine to kind of walk through this event.
Thank you. During some of the leadership calls with Tim and Sean and Carl and Tim and Randy, we were talking about the work groups, and we have a lot of new people. We have new interested parties, and we thought it would be good to have kind of a refresher and new information for those of you that maybe have just joined the governing committee, as well as interested parties, to kind of you hear us what we've been talking about with the work groups and what does that really mean, and what is really our charge. So, and what is our purpose? So, forgive me, I'm trying to look around. I don't want to just read from the slides, but we come together looking at what are the interests of the fire service and addressing issues that can serve the ICC membership. And we can do that in a lot of different ways. And you heard a lot of the discussion today about how we can do that. So that's where we can, and that's kind of a general concept of membership councils. How can we serve the ICC membership within our discipline or our interests? And then we discuss different programs or policies like we're dealing with CP9, and how can we accomplish the goals that have been set forth by the ICC board or the processes by the ICC board. Next slide, please, Tim. So the FSMC is unique from other membership councils in that we have, in our governing committee, we have ICC seats, and then we have 2 MOUs, to which are appointment seats from the different districts within IAFC and NASFM. So when you heard us with our own introduction, it was representing ICC or representing IFC. And that is unique in a lot of cases. As you mentioned earlier, other membership councils, they have just ICC seats. So, and that allows us to be able to expand in our conversations. But just knowing that when we have elections, it is for ICC seats, and the IFC and NASFM seats are appointed seats, and they're appointed through the MOU from that organization. And then they come on the committee based on that appointment. Next slide, please. So what do? We collaborate with other membership councils. We can't do this in a vacuum. We are only one discipline, and it really helps that we have good communication in what we are doing with the Continuity and Outreach Committee, and now it's turned into the Steering Committee. Steering Committee now is the chair and vice chairs of all the membership councils, and they have those good conversations, collaborative conversations. We talk about whatever our issues are, and a lot of times, with fire, we talk a lot with building membership council. We have membership councils attending our regular monthly meetings, and they give their own updates so that we can hear what is going on within each of the membership councils to know how either we can participate or we can assist them if needed. Next slide, please.
200 bucks.
So not true. So we also work with FCAC, and that is relatively new within our work. We're not the ones writing code, but we are the ones understanding emerging issues and trends and where are things going, and some of the items we put forward to FCAC, or they go, yeah, we're already understanding what these topics are. So how can we, within our forum, be able to promote or give ideas to FCAC, or in some cases, if necessary, BCAC, that are of a national fire service interest or issue? We prepare an annual report, and now it's a little bit different. We used to, all the membership councils would prepare a report for the board. Now, we are preparing a report-ish, and it's going through the chair and vice chair and to the steering committee. And the steering committee will prepare one report that's to the board. So instead of the board receiving individual reports from the membership councils, it'll be compiled into one more membership council report. And it will have all of our accomplishments, what our goals were, what our activities are, so that the board members are able to see all the great work that we have been doing throughout the year and the goals that we've reached. And next slide, please. So just a reminder of what our 4 work groups are. And we've heard the reports, and I think we had a great discussion today about what the work that is being done. But this is a little bit more about each of the work groups and examples of what we are doing within the work groups. And I wanted to bring that up because as a governing committee member, there's an expectation that you participate on at least one of the work groups. That's how we get work done. We are working groups, and we need the participation from the governing committee members. And some of the great work that comes, it also includes all the interested parties, people that just have an interest in being a part of solutions and ideas and information gathering. So it's not exclusive to governing committee members, but there is an expectation to governing committee members that you participate. So member engagement, Brian's work group, you can see all of the great work that he's been doing with getting presentations. So if you have, and I don't want to speak for the chairs of the work group, so please chime in if I'm missing something for you. But some of the things like Brian mentioned is if we have any ideas about presenters for a monthly meetings, please let Brian know. If you have any other ideas of how can we engage our membership, you know, we're waiting, we're trying to update our FSMC webpage. And how can we do that to make it more interactive to the membership so that we can get information out with a lot of all the work groups really, but that's part of Brian's work group of how can we continue engaging our membership.
Real quick on that, I
Yes,
just want to, give kudos to Brian and also to Andy King as the pre-runner for Brian, is that we were struggling with people participation in our group, in our meetings, and it was just kind of us. There wasn't a lot of outside groups until they started adding in the educational component to our meetings where we invite people in to speak. And our numbers have bumped from somewhere around 20 maybe being on the call. So now we're 60 on the call. And they're tying in because of the subject. It's kind of a hook, bring them in on the subject, and then they stick around for the meeting and hear what we did. And I think that's been an ongoing success. There isn't one issue out there that's helped increase our membership. I think that one is key to it.
Right. And you have a good point because as Michael said before, he had 16 people on his work group call. That wasn't just governing committee members.
Right.
You know, he has a lot of interested parties that just want to be a part. And that is, for all of us in this room, but also pass that out to anybody else that you might feel has an interest or wants to be engaged with the membership council so that we can get you on the interested party list. You can get the meeting invites, you can get the work group meeting invites, and then you can be working directly with the work groups.
And I mean, just real quick on that topic also is, that's the other membership council's participation. The members from the building, sat in on our meetings and now they're, copying the fire service again, for a better word, that they're having presenters at their meetings and their numbers are going up also. So you can see how that little tidbit has expanded to, everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Public awareness, Kelly's group. Again, you can see all of each work group, I'll back up, each work group has a mission. And the mission is specific to the work that they would like to accomplish and what their lane is in a way. And these are some of the things that was done through the public awareness work group. When we talked about earlier, and I'll bring it up again, when we talked about the inflatable spray buoys, and Kelly mentioned earlier is that the work groups are interconnected. You can take one topic and it'll touch all of the work groups. So inflatable spray booths, when I was chairing public awareness, it came through. So then it went to training and education, and they talked about, okay, well, what kind of more information do we have on this? Are they listed? Are there code of work requirements or allowances? And then it went to public awareness. Well, how can we get this information out? And then member engagement, how can we get it out to the membership? So we are all interconnected with one topic. And it can go in any kind of direction, but that's just a good example as to how we all work together to take one topic and go through each work group. But Kelly was right when he says, if you like to write or you like to discuss about how we can get more informed educational information out to our membership, that's what this work group does. And we have a whole list of email distribution list that we can get information out to you, as well as some things that are already on our webpage of either hot topics or quick hits or something about education. We did documents about inflatable spray booths, fire safety on construction sites, things like that. So a lot of good work coming out of public awareness. Next slide, please. Training and education. This is their mission. And then, as Mark talked about earlier, about coordinating webinar presentations or in-person presentations. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, especially, and they're more deadline driven. So there's more timely work that needs to be done throughout this training and education group. And I will say that well, I'll go to the next. So can you go to the next slide, please. Emerging issues and trends. You heard what Michael was talking about. Here's their mission statement and a lot of the work. One of the things that we're trying to get on the webpage once it gets updated is to be able to have that Excel spreadsheet of emerging issues and trends up on that webpage so that everyone is able to see what those topics are and where they're at with in the process of evaluation. And I think that helps to get that you're not alone, and how can we get all that information out? So the work groups have chairs, and then there's participating members on the work groups. There are some work groups that any work group has the opportunity or option if they would like to have co-chairs. And in some cases, some of the chairs would like to have co-chairs. To be able to help share that workload. So, and I'll let the chairs speak up on their own if they'd like to reinforce that. But there could be some opportunities again for governing committee members to take that participatory role and not only be part of the committee, but even kind of take some program management within that work group. Next slide. So how to become a member or be involved with FSMC? Now, this is for somebody that perhaps is in our audience, interested parties. How do I become a member? Well, you can go to the webpage for FSMC. It's obviously a free membership. You put a little bit of information in, and then you can become a member of FSMC and get all of the great information and meetings information that you will get based on that registration. The entire governing committee meeting meets general open meeting third Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. The work groups have mid-month meetings, and you heard a couple of the work groups talk about when their meetings were, and it's as simple as letting Carl or Tim know what your email address is, and you get added to those work group meetings. And then just, again, another plug. So one of the other changes that happened with CP9 and some of the movement that's new for FSMC is for the ICC seats. We now have annually, if we have vacant seats or we have seats where they're terming out or being reelected. One new thing is now there are alternates that we need to put in place so that obviously for alternates in case there becomes a vacancy before. That's new for FSMC. Other membership councils had that already. So that is something that's new. If you are not currently in the member on the governing committee and you would like to put in an application, later on in the year, there will be an application process. And you can get notified through email with that. And then you put in your application. And then if we don't have any vacant ICC seats, you can still put in your applications because we do need to put in place some alternates. So you can get put on that list too. So again, that is somewhat new for FSMC, and we'll kind of see how that shakes out later in the year. So that's all we had that we wanted to share with the group. Open it up to the committee or the work group chairs if you wanted to say anything more about your specific work groups or kind of how you do things or not. If not, then that's great. Yeah, Kevin.
Just a general question, you're more towards the board. Are MOUs going to continue? Is that something that is on the table for discussion? Since we are the only ones who use them, or is that something that we can go forward knowing that they're secure and there's going to be no change?
The answer is yes.
To what?
The MOUs will stay in place. I want to make sure everyone understands how it works. In recognition of the effectiveness of the FSMC in having the participation from others, we recognize that having a guaranteed opportunity for those seats to be filled by individuals is a good thing. But that doesn't, I need to make sure people understand, that does not mean that ISC and NASM can unilaterally determine who filled those seats. They get to, just like all the ICC seats, propose a name. It comes to the board to determine who fills each seat in every membership council. Now, the likelihood for a name, if presuming that there's nothing deemed to be wrong with the candidate moving forward, presuming that there's nothing wrong, the likelihood of the board saying, no, we don't want this person to go back, give us another name, that's pretty remote, but it could happen. So I just want everyone to understand, ICC, the board's objective for all the membership councils, including this one, is to have the very, very best people possible. And as long as good work gets done, and the reports that we get back share very, very useful information, we're all.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
The MOUs have come under question from previous board members, and a lot of that has to do with ability to fill those seats. And was it still an effective process? And the fact that we've got just about every single member of the governance committee here, and that IFC has been able to fill every place, every seat, and same for NASM, I think as long as that continues, I don't see any reason to readdress the issue with the MOU. If it comes a point in time where the MOU organizations are not able to fill those seats, then we may have to look at that. But using the current model we have, we're not there.
Thank you, Randy.
So do you have a question?
Pretty basic question here, but Christine, do people have to be an ICC member or government to join the FSMC? Or is that just open to like, general public?
My understanding is, as a membership council, that they would need to be an ICC member, but I'm looking to board members, or Tim Schmitz said.
I do not believe, I think anybody that wants to go to the website can sign up to become a member of the membership council. And I don't believe that there's any process through Frontister or through GR that's verifying that the members, now to sit on the governing committee, that may be a different story, but to be an interested party and be part of membership council, I believe is open to any and all.
I was just kind of thinking, with Director Metz's idea of providing some basic fire inspector training for preparation of those things, that might be something you want to have behind that gate, for lack of a better term, of, you must be a member to access this type of material.
Well, if they're going for if they're going for training to get their certification, you're still, if my understanding is, you're required to be a member to receive certification. So to take the test, okay, you have to be an ICC member to be awarded that, provided you pass it. So that kind of takes care of its own going down that line. I don't think it's something that we need to put out there as information. I think it's part of the certification requirement, not necessarily one connected to the fire service membership.
Yeah, there is one item that Doug brings up that I'm gonna share with you all on some actions that the board has taken as far as member benefits. We have been working very closely, especially with, extending member benefits as far as being able to take classes or buy publications at a cheaper rate. Not everybody is able to become a voting member of the organization, but your agency may be a member. And we extend that benefit to you. Look at the city of Los Angeles. They get 12 votes. There are 12 voting members for the city of LA. They have far more people working in the building and safety or fire service that represent the city of LA. And they now have that same member benefit extended to anybody that represents that jurisdiction, as opposed to just what is considered a government voting member for the jurisdiction.
Any other questions, comments? You okay?
Yeah.
I'll move into our next meeting then, is May 16th. Brian, do we have a speaker set up for that?
We don't yet.
Okay, so look for that. Any other questions, comments from the audience? Very good. Everybody hang around for a couple minutes. We got to get a picture taken. But other than that, I appreciate everybody. Thank you all for being here and look forward. Sorry, Bill, you're out of time.
Right on. Wrap it up. Don't say a word, Nash.
Do you have anything real quick, Bill?
No, I just came in.
All right. Anybody else? Motion for adjournment then.
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Thank you all for being here. Like I said, see you in a month. Let's get our picture taken.